Shalom Aleichem. This is a tribute to the neshama of Rabbi Yosef Goldberg, or as he was known, Yossel Goldberg of Borough Park. I personally had a close relationship to him over the years when he would walk home from Rabbi Simpson's shul. Rabbi Rosenfeld was the Rav at the time. In the last 10 years or so, 10, 15 years. And at times I would meet him in the street coming out of the shul that I davened in Beis Menachem. And then he would come in sometimes to daven by us. And I would sit and talk with him. And he was a wealth of information about Brooklyn Jewry and much more. I believe he was born and raised here in Borough Park. So pretty much 92 years of his life, he was a Borough Parker. There were times, that he went away to do different things, which I'll talk about in a moment. But he knew everyone and anything, and it was a machaya talking to him. He was a smart person, a learned person, and a person who was really committed to the core principles of Chabad Hasidism. Additionally, he had a warm relationship to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and I'll say a few things about that. In the early 1950s, 52, 53, 54, the Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka wanted to learn how to drive. He at the time had a company which taught people how to drive. So he told me that he taught the Rebbetzin how to drive. And they had an opportunity to talk a lot. And she felt very comfortable with him. And they stayed kind of friends, throughout her lifetime and his lifetime. And in fact, at some point, they were driving together. I don't know if it was to the Oyhel or somewhere else, and the window was open, and his hat flew out. And the Rebbetzin felt very bad. So when she came home, she took one of the Rebbe's old hats, and she wanted to give it to him. She asked the Americans to give it to Yossel Goldberg, to Rabbi Goldberg, as a gift. And at the time, he refused the gift. So that was the type of relationship. And she felt so bad that he lost his hat because he was teaching me how to drive or taking me somewhere, whatever the case. And therefore, kind of, I have to repay him somehow. And here is, a hat of the Rebbe. And talking about that, his awe and trepidation that he shared with me about the Rebbe's hat was tremendous. And maybe at another time we'll make a clip and talk about that at the right time. Anyway, going back to his youth, it was in Borough Park. His father started the yeshiva Torah Semes Kamenetz. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came here in 1940, there was discussion through Rabbi Jacobson to join the yeshivas together and kind of have Taim Chitmim take over the Torah Semes Kamenetz yeshiva. And his father agreed. But lo and behold, his father had a sudden heart attack, and he passed away at a young age in his 40s, and that never came to fruition. But he told me that, in fact, I think he told me there was even an agreement already on paper for the Frierdiker Rebbe to take over the yeshiva Torah Semes Kamenetz and, have those Talmidim, the students, go into the Lubavitcher yeshiva, which would have inherited, I guess, the building, the property, whatever else, but it never came to fruition. Another thing Yossel did in his early part of life was he was hired as a teacher in Boston at the Lubavitcher yeshiva. At the time, I think he was under Rabbi Castell, I believe, in Boston. And subsequent to that, Rabbi Cement in 1954 or 55 took over the leadership of that yeshiva. And he was a teacher there, and he told me some very interesting stories that he witnessed with his own eyes between Rabbi Savitsky, who was the chief Rav of Boston, or a Rav there, and Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rav, Rabbi Yashaber Soloveitchik. And he knew these personalities, because he was there. He also remembers meeting Rabbi Lazer Silver, who came from Cincinnati to Boston, and the dialogue and issues that there were between Savitsky and Silver was really very animated, to say the least. So I owe him a personal sense of gratitude that I nourished and got from him lots of historical information about the Jewish world in the last 100 years, in American Judaism, Boston, New York, and he knew everything. He knew the bad guys and he knew the good guys. And if I would mention this and this name, he would say, him? Oh, let me tell you about him. Let me tell you the whole story. For example, in 1942, the Frierdiker Rebbe considered hiring Rabbi Moshe Feinstein as the Rosh Yeshiva for the Lubavitch Yeshiva. And Goldberg knew about this. Yossel Goldberg knew about this before we have now the video of the Rabbi Greenblatt of Tennessee, or wherever it is, where he talks about it, because he was there as well as a student in Rabbi Moshe's yeshiva. But I heard about it before, and what Rabbi Goldberg told me was he remembers there was such a conversation, and then he remembers that it was over, it wasn't going to happen. So I asked him, why not? So he says, because Rabbi Moshe had a brother-in-law, I think Ruvain Levovitz, I forget his name, I believe that was it, and he had a big impact on Rabbi Moshe's wife, his sister, and he was against the idea for whatever reason. And Yossel gave me some of the reasons that he believed, but we'll leave it at that for now. It never happened. So what I'm telling you is that, I never heard these details before, and he was the first one to share them with me. And he had these ideas, these lots of information, and it was all in his head. Like, he just started talking about this and about that, and about this street and that street. He knew the early people of Borough Park in the 40s and 50s. He was the one who told me that Reb Aaron, the son of the Chafetz Chaim, he met him in Rabbi Simpson's shul in, I think, 1946 or something. And he told me a story between Reb Nachum Mendel Kunin, the grandfather of Reb Shlomo Kunin, approaching the Chafetz Chaim's son and rebuking him about something. He was right there. It was right there. So it was just, I could sit with him for hours, days and weeks, and just hear all the stories and all the history. I also want to just bring to mind that there were times when health issues in his greater family, and he approached the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him brachas and eitzes and advice, and they all were fulfilled in a positive way. All, I don't know everything, but he shared with me different things that he had, like an open door. Not that he didn't need an appointment. He did need an appointment, like most others, to see the Rebbe, but there was a warmkeit, a warmth. Now, it could be that he was, a Yosem. He lost his father at a young age. Rabbi Mentlik took a strong liking to him, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Lubavitch Yeshiva. The Rebbe knew him from the 1940s. And his uncle was Rabbi Ushpal, right? Rabbi Ushpal was very close to the Rebbe. So I believe that also had to do with it. So he was, like, in a way, on the inner circle of having the Rebbe and the Rebbe's ear. But you would never know. Most Lubavitchers never even heard about this individual. Another thing that he should be remembered for is that he helped his uncle Rabbi Ushpal, solidify his job in the shul on 12th Avenue and 41st Street, which is now boarded up and in court because some people want to make condominiums over there. And Yossel Goldberg is the one that went to the Merkez and pushed that they should take it to fight them in court, and not in court, get a bezdin. Actually, I take that back. It's not at a court. I'm sorry. It's at a bezdin. But before that, in the 50s, I think 57, when Rabbi Ushpal became Rava, so he davened in his uncle's shul with his brothers. He had a brother Feivel, who's passed on. Then he has a brother Levi, who's still alive, Baruch Hashem. And their chaverim, like Rabbi Yosef Maskel, Olav Sholem, and others, became members of the shul to support Rabbi Ushpal. So Yossel Goldberg was a mainstay in that shul till even after Rabbi Ushpal passed on. They stayed in the shul for years. And you see now that this whole issue came to a head, it was Yossel Goldberg who brought it to the attention of Merkez. So that's a very important thing, and we do hope that it'll stay in the hands of Lubavitch, of Chabad. Another thing that he told me, that recently I spoke to him about this about 3 years ago, is that Baruch Hashem, he made a very large donation to Merkez to print Sfarim of the Rebbe Marash's Maimorim. And he told me he felt very good about it, that he was able to kind of pay back, the Rebbe and Merkez. And he had a good, close relationship with Rabbi Krinsky, and they facilitated that. So these are things, chusim, for his neshama, that we need to remember. And many, many other things. Hopefully there'll be other occasions to share more things, pictures that I have of his, that he gave me, and some documents, maybe some videos. We'll see as time goes along, but I do want everyone to know that this was a Taira Yid, and he was a Talmud of the Frierdiker Rebbe, a Chassid of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe, close to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and he's Zichrei Baruch, v'kitznu kitzuranu shachne sheichne oifer, who beteicham. You should have a lichting Gan Eden, and to comfort his wife, who's Chavi Hecht's Rebbetzin Chavi Hecht's sister. So Yankel Hecht was his brother-in-law, and his daughters are married to Rabbi Spalter of Toronto, I believe, and Rabbi Bucket, Levi Bucket of Chicago. And then his sons scattered throughout one's a Borough Park, I think one's a Muncie, in the greater New York area. May everyone be comforted, and Taka have Moki Menachem Eschem, Teich Sharavil Tzim Yerushalayim, Teich Sharavil Yerushalayim. When you have Simchas from here on, Uzechet Tegula Shleim, Bekor of Mamish, Tchias Hameshim, Mamish now. Thank you.